update, please let us know in the chat. We'll be tracking the chat today and keeping track of all of your questions, comments. And if we're not able to answer any of the questions that you have today, we will take them back for consideration and get a good answer for you. And if the question pertains to burn partners across the board, we will include that question and our answer in our frequently asked questions document. This frequently asked questions document will be updated on a regular basis with questions that come to us through our Measure 110 grants inbox, as well as these meetings. And if it's specific to your organization, we will reach out to you with an answer shortly that is specific to your needs. I see a question about getting a recording of this webinar. Just want to make sure that
recording in progress.
Okay, there we go. So thank you very much. And yes, recording has started and you will have access to that. So since we're just starting recording and we have some new folks in the room, I will reintroduce myself. I'm Angela Carter. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the manager of the Measure 110 program with OHA. And we're glad to have you today. So any questions that you have around the technical aspects of your grant, please do drop those in the chat, and we'll cover a few of those details today, specifically around the next 30 to 90 days of the granting period. And if you have questions that are specific to your organization, we'll get back to you on those directly. If they are questions that could apply broadly across all of our grantees, we can either provide that information to you here or truly, it will be included in our frequently asked questions document. That document will be sent out as well as available on the Measure 110 website. We'll be updating it with new questions on a regular basis. So please feel free to review that. It'll have information about grant compliance, about data collection, about financial records retention responsibilities, a lot of different pieces. So there's a good amount of information that will be included in that. And that should be coming out and being updated on a regular basis relatively soon. All right. So let's walk through this PowerPoint and just talk about a few things. So I believe that probably most of you, but maybe not all of you, have a finalized grant agreement. I know that we are still working through several counties to get finalized grant agreements. And so if you don't have a finalized grant agreement yet, at this point, that is okay. We will continue to work with you on getting all of the pieces together to make sure that that happens. Once your grant agreement is in place, we would need all of the memorandums of understanding between you and your partners in your county's burn. And those you'll need to have those by about 30 days after the grant agreement is signed and executed. Those memorandums of understanding are required before we are able to distribute funds. And so if you can get those to us as soon as possible, we can then begin to get your funds out to you. Those memorandums of understanding are, I know that we have a couple of email boxes here, and I just want to make sure that we're clear. The memorandums of understanding go to Kristen Don Hefner, who has been working with you all in negotiations process for the grants. And so she is collecting those memorandums and compiling them here for us at OHA. So please send your memorandums to Kristen. The other aspects that we need, the certificates of insurance and the other documents that are requested in the grant agreement, would go to our Measure 110.grants inbox. And I believe that we have that written down. We have had a relatively recent change in the structure of our emails. Previously, it was at state.or.us. At this point, it is a different format, and I don't want to speak it without reading it to make sure that I can say it correctly, but it is on one of the next pages. Oh, there it is in the chat. M110.grants at odhsoha.oregon.gov. All of our state emails will be moving over to that that layout for emails in the very near future. So just keep an eye out for that change, and know that at this point, that change has already occurred for the grants email address. All right. So I wanted to give a little bit of a little bit of detail on the specific asks that we have around insurance. There are several different pieces of insurance verification that we will need to have on hand as a part of your grant agreement. And so we'll just do a quick review of those. There is a requirement for a demonstration if you have staff that you have workers' compensation insurance. And so we would need to receive a certificate of that. We also would need to have a certificate of insurance for a couple of other pieces. I'm just pulling up my list. Thank you for your patience. There's also a requirement for general commercial liability. I believe that that coverage needs to be on an occurrence basis in an amount not less than 1 million per occurrence. And there's an annual aggregate limit that's not less than 2 million. We also have a requirement for demonstration of professional liability insurance. Excuse me. And again, that one is 1 million per claim, aggregate of 2 million or more. If needed, we may request demonstration of umbrella insurance if there are specific aspects of insurance needs that are not fulfilled by the other pieces of insurance verification. We also ask for a waiver of subrogation, and I believe that that document has been shared with everyone, and we would just need to receive that back. We also ask for tail coverage if, for instance, the organization closes or a staff member is no longer providing service. We request an extended tail coverage for a minimum of 24 months. So all of those certificates of insurance would be sent to us at the M110.grants email, which is in the chat. And we also request if you have any changes to your insurance, or if your insurance is canceled for some reason, please let us know in writing with at least 30 days notice before that insurance is canceled or changed, so that we can keep track of and gather the new documents that we would need to verify your insurance. And there may be a periodic review of those insurance requirements to make sure that we have all of the right documentation for you and your organization. Any questions about insurance before I move to a different topic? Just want to make sure that I was clear in all of that. If there's any questions, let us know in the chat. I wanted to clarify also the, I believe it was 10A that was mentioned on the previous slide. Just wanted to clarify, I know that there are some folks joining us who have not previously worked with the state on a project on grants. And so I just wanted to clarify records maintenance. We at the state request that you maintain financial records, accounting documents, basically maintain a record of your financial and programmatic work for 6 years after the final payment and ending of the grant agreement. And have those documents available if they are requested in any circumstance where we may need to know more about your financials or programmatic operations in that 6-year period after the grant ends. Just wanted to clarify that. And then I believe that that's it for this slide. And we'll keep rolling through. So grant agreement, once that's signed, we get your MOUs within 30 days. Once the MOUs are received, we then can provide you with your first disbursement of funding. We would need to receive those certificate of insurance shortly thereafter. And then we won't get to reporting until early next year. We're looking at a date for both fiscal and data reporting in mid-January. And there will be a template available for fiscal reporting. There will also be a template available for data reporting, and we will get the information to you very shortly on what will be required in those reports so that you can plan accordingly to track that information so that it's easily accessible to you when those reports come due. And so those reports, again, would begin in mid-January. The reports would be due in January, but they would be due not for the quarter immediately previous, so, but for the quarter one step before that. So for July, August, September of 2022, those reports would be due in January. And then for October, November, December, those reports would be due in April. And so that would continue on a rolling basis moving forward quarterly. You'd have the fiscal reports and the programmatic data reports due at the same time. And again, we'll get the information to you shortly on what will be requested in those reports so that you are able to track that information appropriately and have it at the ready when those reports are due. We're moving it forward a couple of months to make sure that you all have time to gather that data and make sure it is complete before you send it to us. So just know, again, we'll get you the information soon on what would be needed. I also want to clarify that there was a requirement previously to submit to us a patient insurance submission plan. That would have been a document letting us know how you would go about billing insurance, because there is a requirement for the Measure 110 burn grants that these funds not supplant any other funding source. We understand that not all organizations are able to or really set up to bill Medicaid. We do want to support you if you are able to bill Medicaid categorically. We do want to support you in accessing that funding stream so that you can bill insurance for those clients and patients that you will see who are able to have their insurance or Medicaid billed. So let us know if we can offer you assistance with that. There will be more information coming shortly on Medicaid specific billing. And if we can help, let us know. We will be helping you out with reminders. We'll be reminding you when reporting is due. We'll gently nudge you if we haven't received any specific documents from you by the specific time that they are due. So know that while it is good to track what is due and when, we will reach out and help you remember to get your data into us on time.
Hey Angela, this is Chelsea.
Hi,
We
Chelsea.
may want to pause and see if there's any just general questions before we move on. I know we did a lot of project kickoff and onboarding. I do see a question in the chat, and one says, will these requirements be available in written form?
So yes, that is a very good question. And it makes a lot of sense to have it written down so you know where to look to find out what you need to do. These requirements are largely outlined in your grant agreement. So if you do have a signed and executed grant agreement, that information would be available in various different parts of the grant agreement. So for instance, the requirements around insurance are in Exhibit C of your grant agreement, and it lists through each of the different kinds of insurance that are required and the details of those requirements. There are listed also any rules that outline how information needs to be submitted, or definitions around, for instance, what different kinds of employers are, and what kind of insurance those specific employers would need to comply with their grant requirements. So that could be a useful tool, actually. We could walk through the grant agreements and just demonstrate to you where the different pieces are to make sure that you know where to find the information in your grant agreement. So as I said, the insurance requirements are in Exhibit C, which is down a couple of pages from the top. We also have information about our general governing law and the compliance with that law, information about conflict of interest, how payments will happen, what would happen if there is an overpayment, and a variety of other things. So I will just verbally walk through a grant agreement and what is where. So on the first page of all grant agreements, there's a grant agreement number. That is a good number to keep track of. That's your reference that you can share with us if you have a question about your grant. It is helpful to know what the grant agreement number is. and that's on all grants on the first page in the upper left-hand corner. We also have the contact information for OHA and our program. And then sorry. And then on page 2, there is a list of all of the different exhibits. And in each of those, in that list, is detail on where you can find each of the various different pieces of information in your grant. I'm thinking that understanding grant agreements is probably a longer and more detailed conversation. And I would love to actually come back to that conversation maybe at a future TA meeting so that we can make sure that everyone is clear on where they can find things in their grant agreements. If you look through your grant agreement and you are not clear on any piece of information, you are always welcome to reach out to the M110.grants email address, which is in the chat, and we can drop that in there again. So if you do have questions about where to find things in your specific grant agreement, let us know and we will help you find them.
Thanks, Angela. There's one more question that I want to go to. It's about billing. So Dan says, as we're working towards billing, including bringing on an LCSW, so will we need to submit a billing plan then? We are shooting for 6 months.
Thank you. Thank you, Diana. So you do not need to submit a patient billing plan at all. That requirement has been removed. So if you do bring on an LCSW who would be able to provide services and bill for those services, we're very excited for you for that. That's great, but you don't need to provide us with a billing plan. Couple of other pieces. We have another requirement for submission of a set of policies and procedures. Those policies and procedural requirements are outlined in our Chapter 944 rules. And I believe that there's a set of policies regarding how you will work with youth, how you will work with pregnant persons, how you will work with the LGBTQIA2 Spirit Plus community, how you will assure linguistic accessibility. And so we understand that some of you may already have those policies designed. And we would welcome you sharing those policies with us if you have already set them up and designed them. We will have a set of templates that we will be sharing shortly to help folks who have not yet built their own set of policies to do so. And as a reminder, those policies and procedures would be due to us 90 days from the time you receive the template, not 90 days from grant execution, but 90 days from the time that that template gets to your inbox. And so just wanting to make sure you have time to review those template policies, you have time to build your particular set of policies that apply to your organization. And if you have a set, like I said before, if you have a set of policies that have already been designed and they are similar to the standards laid out in the template, you are welcome to share those with us as your policies and procedures. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to completely reinvent the wheel. We do have the template that can guide you in building policies if you do not have them. And we don't expect you to build an entirely new set of policies if you already have one. We do have some basic requirements around program values that will be outlined in those policies. And so we do hope to share them with you, as well as an understanding of what the council's intended purpose for those policies are. So if there are pieces of information in those policies, templates that you would like to integrate into your current policies, you would also be welcome to do that. And then I see there's more questions coming in. I think I've already spoken about the programmatic and fiscal reporting requirements, but I will review a little more in depth. As far as the fiscal requirements, there will be a template with detailed information on how to submit those fiscal reports. Those are going to be quarterly reports, and those reports will begin to be due in January. So starting in January and moving forward quarterly from there. We don't have expectations of reporting in the first 6 months of grant execution. We do have a set of requirements for the reporting we will share with you so that you are aware and can gather that information beforehand and have it ready for when those submissions are due in January. Fiscal and programmatic data reporting will be due at the same time on a rolling basis quarterly starting in January. With the programmatic reporting, it's a stepwise process. The intention here is to give all of our burn partners the time to establish programs, which I know is a really big, important focus, getting the work ready to happen. And so for the first 6 months, we're not expecting reports for you. And so that first programmatic report, the data that we would like to receive from you in January, will be a stepwise process. We're starting off with a smaller set of data that we're requesting from you. And then as we go forward quarterly, there will be more requests for data added to the list. We will make sure that everyone is clear on what the data required is. There is a template that will clearly outline the information that we need. And we are working towards being in compliance with REAL-D and SOGI data requirements. Just to review what that is, REAL-D is information on race, ethnicity, age, language, and disability. And then SOGI is sexual orientation and gender identity. We are looking forward to moving towards compliance with REAL-D and SOGI so that we can truly understand who is receiving services, what their experiences are like from different perspectives and backgrounds, and so that we can continually improve how services are delivered for all different kinds of demographics. So to start off again, it'll be a small data set. The next reporting after January and April would be a slightly larger data set. And again, each quarter, we would add a little bit more information with the intention of giving you time to establish your programs, get comfortable in the work, and then build your system of data collection. And for folks who are coming into the room, I'll just make a reminder, we're not requiring a patient insurance submission policy. At this time, we're not requiring that anymore. The template for data will be available soon. I know that everyone would like to see what would be required in their reports, and we will have that information to you very shortly. We will definitely give you enough time before the reports are due in January to review that and understand what the requirements are. And I'm going to pause here for a moment and see if there are any other questions that might be useful for the group for me to answer at this point.
Hi, Angela. There is another question in the chat that I will read to you. The question is, if we are awarded in different counties, I assume we just have to submit once. When submitting our response, should we list out the grant agreement numbers? And I think this was a little while ago, so I'm not sure if this is about submitting the policies and procedures, but I do believe that was when this question was submitted. And I can answer the second part. Please always indicate your grant agreement number when communicating with OHA, whether it be your contract administrator or through the grants inbox. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. So if you are awarded, excuse me, if you're awarded in different counties, I think there's a couple of different points to be made here. If you have a different set of services that you're providing in different counties, if your organizational structure is different in different counties, as far as the policies go, there may be some slight differences in how you would operate each one of your units. So we do request for every grant agreement that you have that you would submit the appropriate documentation. We store all of your documentation for each individual grant agreement in its own section. And so for reference purposes, it would be helpful for us to know, if you have an insurance policy that covers all of your organization's work in the state of Oregon, for instance, it would be helpful for us to have that documentation available for each of the grants that you have. So if you have a grant in 3 different counties, but the insurance is global across the state, we would love it if you would let us know which grant agreements those policies apply to so that we can track them appropriately.
And it looks like we did answer that question. We have another question. How can grant recipients check on funding status? What is needed and when to expect initial funding?
Yes, thank you, Tim. So with the grant agreement signature, once it is signed and executed, and we receive all of your memorandums of understanding with your other partners in your burn, then we are able at that point to begin funding execution. And it is our goal to get those out to you as quickly as possible. We are aiming to get funds out. We basically, once we receive the MOUs, we immediately initiate the funding process, and it does take a period of time to go through our offices to get that funding out. The one thing that I would suggest with the funding piece is, if you are not sure if you have an electronic funds transfer set up with the state, let us know and we can make sure that that is indeed in place so that we can expedite payment into your account directly rather than sending you a paper check as quickly as possible. We are aiming to get those payments out once we've received all of the MOUs and we have a signed and executed grant agreement. We are aiming to get those funds out within, I believe, within a month. There may be slight variation in that, but we are aiming to get them out as quickly as possible.
I do not see any more questions in the chat, Angela.
Okay, thank you. I know that there are some differences in the initial disbursement versus the quarterly payments, but we are set up. Once that initial disbursement goes out to you, we are then set up to continue those payments to you on a quarterly basis. I believe that there are different agreements depending on need and discussion and negotiations. And so you would be receiving on a quarterly basis those grant dispersals. And I will pause and see if there are any more questions that anyone might like to drop in the chat. Brett has dropped a question in the chat, and I'll verbalize it. We really want to make this a useful tool for everyone who joins us. And in order to do that, it would be very helpful for us to know what topics you would like us to cover in the future in these TA meetings. So if you have specific information that you'd like us to bring a more thorough discussion of, please let us know. I see an interest in reviewing the grant agreement. That is definitely something that we can walk through at a future meeting for sure.
Angela, I do see another question in the chat.
Mhm.
That it's from Tim. He thanks you for the answer. His question is if there is someone he can contact to follow the funding process.
Follow the funding process, as in getting more information about where things are in the process of funding. I think that might be what you're asking. I just want to clarify. Generally, I would say send an email to the M110.grants inbox. We will be tracking that inbox for any questions people have and getting answers back to you about who the right contact person is and any details that we are able to provide. So I would say, Tim, reach out to that inbox and we can connect you with the right people to get the information that you need. Any other thoughts about what would be useful in future technical assistance meetings for us to review for you so that we can make sure you have the right information? Totally happy to walk through any number of things, give you more details. I know that for some folks, this is the first time that you've engaged in a grant agreement with the state, and I really do want to make sure that the information that we provide is useful and helps keep you up to date as possible on the process that we're walking through.
All right, we do have another question in the chat. It's from Renee Hancock. The question is, it would be helpful to have a better, or maybe it's a more of a statement. It would be helpful to have a better understanding of the specific requirements for housing, specifically the reporting requirements.
Totally understand. That makes sense. And we can definitely, so we're finalizing the template for data collection. And part of that data collection will be around housing requirements. And once that template is finalized, that is definitely something that we can walk through here to provide clarity on what we're looking for. And we will make that a point of one of our next TA meetings to review the template and also specifically to talk through what those reporting needs would be for each aspect of program work. Thank you for the idea. Appreciate it, Renee. Just want to acknowledge that we have about 10 minutes left. So if there are any other questions, or if you have any ideas for what you would like a thorough review of at future TA meetings, just drop that in the chat. We'll take note and we'll bring that information to you. There's one other thing that I think might be worth mentioning, and that would be for you to keep an eye on your registration with the Secretary of State in order for us to have you in compliance with the grant agreement. We do need you to have an updated and up-to-date registration of the business with the Secretary of State. And so That would be on the Secretary of State website. You can look to see what your expiration date is for the registration. And if it is coming up, mark that in your calendars for renewal so that we can make sure that that is indeed current and we are able to continue with our quarterly payments to you. And just for the sake of information, if you have any questions about your current registration with Secretary of State, I dropped in the chat the registration page. So you can go there to check and see if you are current, to find out what your date of expiration is, and to renew your registration when it's time. And also, while I'm thinking about it, since we did mention, and on this slide even, the Real D and SOGI data, that's race, ethnicity, age, language, disability, sexual orientation, and gender identity, we are working towards a goal of being in line with data collection around Real D and SOGI. And if you're interested in learning more about that particular kind of data collection, why it's important, and how to collect it, there is information on our Division of Equity and Inclusion page about Real D and SOGI data, and I'm dropping that in the chat as well. Okay, thank you for joining us, Cami. It's lovely to have you here. Look forward to seeing you in future meetings. Take care. dhsoha.oregon.gov email, and we'll take note and bring you the information. All right. Just doing a last call for questions. We have about 2 minutes left. Are there any other thoughts? Let us know. And again, our inbox address is in the chat. If you come up with any thoughts after this meeting is over, I do that all the time. As soon as I'm done with the meeting, everything I wanted to ask pops into my head. So please reach out to us. Let us know what questions you have, what topics would be useful for future meetings, and we'll make it happen. All right. We'll wrap up for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to work with you and support you in supporting our community. And I hope you have a beautiful day and a beautiful weekend. Take care. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Recording stopped.